Hello? Right, all good. Just getting everything set up. I did a stream a couple of days ago. I thought I'd do another one today. Fairly similar idea. I'm just going to go through a list of games I've made up and play them. Although I'm starting with PitFighter this time because it was broken in the previous release with some of the slapstick changes. Apparently it resets around stage 5. But there have been some fixes that have gone in. The slapstick code was pretty much rewritten again. And I was asked to give things a bit of a test. Hello Thomas, I hope all is good with you. Thank you for replying in the chat. And I'm going to coin this one up now and probably credit feed my way through it because it's PitFighter and it's a bad game. But it does need testing to see if it resets at all. Because if anybody's been paying attention, I did a video about Rampart and the slapstick fixes. And while the Rampart was fixed in the release prior to the current one, a couple of other things got broken, including Gauntlet and PitFighter and Peter Pack-Rat. So it revealed a few things that we didn't understand fully about the slapstick, and Olivia managed to have another look at it. Hopefully it's come up with a solution that actually works in all cases this time. But it's a very difficult one to test because the protections are hidden in various places in the game and you don't always trigger them. Games like this don't have that many fans, so it's important to actually test them. I'm not very good at it. I mean, it's better than the sequel, Gardens of the Hood, or however you want to call it. The strange thing with this one is, even though it's obviously a terrible game, I did rent it quite often on the Mega Drive. I think it was just, it's probably one that's aged worse than anything else, because there weren't many games with digitised fighters around at the time. So it had a unique look, but it just doesn't play well. For some reason there are 3 different versions of this with different slapsticks, which is more than any other Atari game, I believe. So I don't know why they changed the protection around between revisions a bit, but apparently they did. But I'm just going to try and make sure it doesn't crash later on. The collision and everything else in this game is just bad. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a very good big success for Atari. I mean, that's why he ended up the follow-up of Guardians of the Hood and everything else. And people were saying they wanted more games like PitFighter, and it's probably one of those mistakes in the end that did no good because they were always trying to imitate it again and thought people actually wanted it and led them down the wrong paths. And as if, you know, not long after this we got Street Fighter 2, which reinforced that people wanted fighting games. It's just how the industry went at that time in the early 90s. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why anybody would want to bootleg it, but there's always money in that type of thing. And you look at some of the games that have been bootlegged and you wonder why. Or some of the bootleg versions of games and you wonder why. If you've loaded up the Art of Fighting bootleg Pit of Fighting, it's got no sound emulation at the moment, but that's just a horrible, complete re-implementation of the game. Somebody didn't just bootleg the game, they reprogrammed it using ripped graphics and new sounds, and I don't know why. I mean, Art of Fighting is not a terrible game, but it's not a game you want to spend forever rewriting. But the same company did the Fighter's History bootleg, but I prefer Fighter's History in the first place. That was called The History of Martial Arts. And again, it's a complete implementation of the engine. And then there's the unfinished thing that's just in MAME is Google Prototype, where it's just a glitchy mess, but that apparently contains sprites for Konami's Martial Champion, so I think they may be trying to bootleg that as well on the same hardware. Do you like this one then, Edson? So we're just saying that not many people like PitFighter, so I'm testing it to make sure it doesn't crash with the latest changes. Yeah, Rise of the Robots. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with that one. I mean, I was playing the arcade one version of that in MAME the other day to see if anything changed with some of the videos, because they end up rendering in a single colour. But they're still rendering in a single colour at times after a certain number of fights. Phil isn't sure if that's just how the game is. It looks odd. I was wondering if maybe it was a single channel palette, right, to tint the colour, but I can't find anything. I mean, it looks alright in still screenshots. In terms of pre-rendered graphics, there are worse pre-rendered graphics, but there's just no game to it, is there, with Rise of the Robots? I think the arcade version with the CD versions with the cutscenes have something. Then you've got versions like the Amiga where it's just on disc and there's tons of disc swapping, no game. And as I say, I grew up with playing the Mega Drive version of this, which I didn't remember at the time as being terrible. It's one I rented rather than bought, so I kind of liked it enough to actually want to go out and buy it, but how to pick things up? I don't know how to pick things up. But yeah, I mean, you got some really bad 8-bit ports in it. The CPC's got a port of it that's so slow you don't want to play it. I think it might even have a 2-player mode though, which is surprising. But yeah, I mean, home computers and even the consoles weren't really going to do the whole scaling thing, and this has got a lot of scaling going on, even though it doesn't really add much to the game in this case, because you can scale up, scale down. In fact, it probably just makes the graphics look worse. I've not played the Master System version, I'll admit that. It's one I've not looked at, although the Master System as a platform is really underrated. There are so many good games on it. I mean, good games to bad games ratio is far better than something like the NES. And also, you know, when it's programmed well, it looks good. The Master System game can look fantastic. The main issue with it is the sound hardware, which is quite weak. Even the Japanese version with the extra chip, you just don't quite get the same quality of tunes as the NES. But yeah, I really like the Master System. Okay, fair enough, it was fairly popular over here, as opposed to in the US. They've done a good job on the soundtrack in this system, haven't they? I mean, I can try putting it on after this. Just have a little look at it. I think it'll probably run on MAME. Master System drive is generally considered good. I mean, whenever I've run anything on it, it seems as good as any emulator out there. I was watching somebody stream the Atari VCS 2600 version of Double Dragon last night. Hayes Maker sent people over, and you can't recognise that as Double Dragon. So, is it anything like that in terms of being so different to the original? I mean, obviously the Master System of this is not going to be doing any kind of scaling. That was just certain. I guess it's going to have tiny little sprites. I might put it on after this, just quickly. I'm not going to extensively play this. I just want to quickly my way through this and make sure it doesn't reset at any point. And then I'll have a look at the Master System version, which isn't on my list, but as I'm going to go with suggestions from the chat. I mean, around this time this came out, there were, I think, also when the WWF games around the same time, and they were popular. Not maybe WWF was it a few years earlier? I don't remember. But this sort of has that almost out of ring fight feel to it that some, I think, WWF were doing for some shows around the time. So maybe that was part of the appeal, sort of backstage fighting. Apparently the scaling isn't entirely accurate on this. There are some pixel gaps where there shouldn't be, some stray pixels where there shouldn't be. But that type of thing is really difficult to get right in emulation. You have to study how the exact formula that uses to render it. And there's so many games where the zooming isn't quite perfect. It's rare that they upload any kind of zoom table for the hardware to use, so unless you've studied it with lots of screenshots and hardware tests, you usually don't know exactly which pixels get shown and which ones get dropped. And you get rounding errors on scaling. The Jackie Chan game in MAME is pretty bad for it, with obvious gaps in it when it scales. And that's a common Kaneko Supernode hardware type. It's essentially right yet, but very difficult to get it right at the time. Super WrestleMania, that rings a bell. I probably own that one. I know the local skate place had WrestleFest, I think it was. Played that one there. And that WrestleFest seems to hold up quite well. It's got the big chunky sprites. It's nice and fast, unlike WWE Superstars, which was a bit slow, but I mean, that felt like an evolution of Double Dragon with the same speed problems. But WrestleFest is nice and fast in the arcades. Match 7. It's not reset yet, has it? I think I've been paying attention. So, hopefully, Slapstick is working. Unless anybody's noticed anything horribly wrong with this game. Because I don't know it well enough to really say. Now facing the Incredible Hulk. Look at that car, that is terrible art. Who drew that? Who thought this is a great piece of art? I don't know. This looks like it was added in at the last minute or something like that. It really looks like programmer art. Unless they had proper cars and weren't allowed to use them, I don't know. So odd. But yeah, I guess you have to ask somebody at Atari. Maybe they just didn't expect anybody to actually play it this far, or they didn't care. I mean, you do get that with a lot of arcade games. They get really lazy towards the end, recycled assets, recycled stages. I think they just thought nobody's actually ever going to play them that far. Put all the best content at the start so people are impressed and see it, and then just kind of filler. It's filler for people credit being. There you go. It makes sense really. They're there to take your money. They're there to impress you at the start. Match 8. Okay, come on then. Mad Miles. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, even the characters, you never hear anybody talk about how Mad Miles was a fantastic character. They're all so generic. And that's one thing with the likes of Street Fighter. Every character is memorable, everybody remembers all the characters. Here, I mean, maybe that's just making them playable. Here you've just got very generic looking person in camouflage. With more bad cars that are just the same ones that in blue. I mean, it was 3 players. maybe that's some of the appeal. I mean, I've never played it with 3 players. The home Mega Drive version's 3 players, was it? Yeah. Well, that's often the case, isn't it? If the game fails the is it fun to play factor, then it can do anything. I find that there's quite a few games where I find that to be the case. If you look at, I mean, my personal opinion, what Taito did with Super Chase, the third Chase HQ game, it's big, flashy, lots of scaling, lots of things. You're driving through shopping malls, and it's just not as fun as the first 2 games, which felt serious and like you were actually chasing down criminals, not just destroying scenery in shops and driving through bushes. And that type of thing works with the Sega Jurassic Park game, even though that's more of a ride than a game. But if you want to do Chase HQ, then that wouldn't work. Oh, knockdown. Some of these rounds are far easier than others. How long does this game go on for? Match 9. Southside Gym. So far it's not crashed, that's good. At least there's a purpose to playing this. And this is one of those where the mix of low resolution and high resolution is really obvious. You've got things that just scaled up too much, like the edge of the screen, because I guess they wanted to save ROM space, so they just use it with high scaling. It looks awful. Also, you've got wasted space on the bars at the side of the screen, which I guess is to cover up some other limitation of the scaling hardware. I don't really know. I don't think it's even that much of an original concept. It wasn't Street Smart for this, and that's got this whole type of fighting inside a crowd. Taito's Cheeky, I think, similar. And then there's Neo Geo game Aggressive Dark Combat, but I think that came afterwards. But there are better implementations of this type of idea. What's even more surprising with Atari is there are so many games that didn't get released as well. They really just went with any idea, and if it worked, it worked. If it didn't, it didn't. Sometimes they shipped anyway. It depended entirely on how well they tested. Oh, we've got 2 people fighting us now. That's makes it up a bit the first time. But yeah, this game does go on for too long. That is definitely the case. I don't know how long I've been playing now. It says I've been streaming for 20 minutes, and so most of that's been this game. Playing it, I think I started after about 2 minutes of just breathing and attracting, so far I've been playing about 20 minutes of this game, and it's just mindless. And maybe there's more strategy because I'm just credit feeding it, but I really don't know. Let's chain that. I mean, I'm glad Atari put anything out, because if they didn't, we might not have seen things like Paperboy, and that's, you know, a memorable game, an original concept. So, you know, and Rampart, which I think before, that most companies would not have released Rampart as an arcade game. It's just not the type of game you'd expect from an arcade. Yeah, I did uploaded a video of Chinese Exorcist last public show the other day, because I still want to do a moments of 2020 video, and the clones emulated. So I ended up credit feeding my way through that one too, which is very tricky because some of the last enemies really kill you off quickly. That doesn't quite have the fluid movement to this because that's all tile based, but yeah, that's. I mean, that's not digitising people as such. That's more clay model type thing. So yeah, there's because I wanted to see what all the stages were like as well and see what was localised in that one. So I did record the entire game and uploaded some more footage of it. So I think we said the English claim was added at the start of the year. I imagine this ups the difficulty when you are a bit okay too. I don't know what the moves are. I think I started with Tide, didn't I? Oh wait, is this the last guy? No, this is Warrior. This is Warrior who likes to throw crates at me. Okay. I don't even know what the keys are. I'm sure there's combination keys to do things, but I mean the music's not terrible. I'll give it that. But it's not great either. I'm being Donkey Kong now, throwing bangles at people. I don't want to talk about how many credits I've used already. At least it does let you continue, it doesn't just restart the fight every time, because that would get very monotonous. Not the rules and whatever, but I'm thinking how many games before this had blood effects. Is that a fairly new thing with this? I'm trying to think maybe what was it the first thing to do in any way at all. So yeah, it's not crashing anyway, that's good. I mean, I'm not going to quit until I've completed now because it's better if I make sure it works till the end because, we don't want to ship it, build with it broken again. As not great as it is, it's better to have things working and tested. And it gives Olivia confidence in the new slapstick implementation if the game works. Oh, I am the new champion, so that was the last maybe. With some colour cycling, it looks just as bad as everything else. Sorry. So yeah, some games are a little bit louder than other games. It's not always easy to tell, especially when the music starts going in cases like that. But there, it seems to run. It didn't crash that I'm aware of, so I think, unless the crashing is entirely random, and it doesn't always crash, the new slapstick code is probably good. Probably works, at least for that game. It seems to work for Gauntlet based on Olivia's own testing. It seems to still work for Peter Pack-Rat, Empire Strikes Back. I think most of them got a bit of testing this time. Rampart apparently still works. Thank you for the congratulations. I'm glad nobody put a GG good game because it isn't, and it wasn't a good gameplay on my part. So that is PitFighter, and may I never have to play that version of PitFighter again. Now, I did say I'd have a look at the Master System version in time. I'm not going to play this for long. But somebody mentioned this earlier, so let's have a little look. I'm not sure the music suits. It's a nice little tune, but it's got more of a spacey sound to it, hasn't it? Like the Doomsday Machine. Domark are a bit hit and miss, aren't they? I'm sure I played games by Domark that have been playable. It's not by Teatex, is it? Oh, yeah, these are tiny sprites, aren't they? Wow. This is very different. I mean, this actually looks quite nice with the dinky little sprites like that, doesn't it? Yeah. A lot of people didn't like tiny sprites in games, especially arcade games. But obviously, Master System, you're quite limited on what you can do in terms of sprites. So, yeah, this works. And they're really well animated. The frame rate and animation is actually far better than the arcade. And obviously, the sprites are tiny, but these have nice, smooth animations. No music in game, unfortunately. Because what's the Captain America game from Data East? That's got tiny sprites in the arcade. And I really like the style it's got, but a lot of people go, "Oh, it looks like a NES game. Why is this in the arcades?" But it's, I mean, it's more colourful than a NES game. But people just didn't want tiny sprites. Okay, and it's tougher than the arcade. Well, I'm just bad at it. Yeah, it's nice and smooth. No, but they're not tried to make it the arcade game. They've just gone with the same sort of theme. I mean, I don't think that there's no crowd, is there, throwing stuff in? No, they're just, oh, yeah, they push it back. They're slightly animated. Yeah. I've not played this one before, but you know what? It's actually quite an impressive attempt at doing something different. I don't know how it plays long term. Obviously need different strategies, but yeah, maybe it's better than the original. Well, I'm struggling to beat the first executioner here. Although I'm doing better now. You just have to avoid his attacks, not just try and spam your own. So it's not Rise of the Robots. It appears to have some corruption. I don't know if that's the game or that's our emulation of the Master System. I mean, I thought our emulation of the Master System was pretty good, but there was some corruption there, clear corruption. And I wouldn't put it past it being just the game. There we go. Oh, it's got the forklift scene as well. No money powers building up, which is a shame. Yeah, I was saying I'd had a look at the VCS Double Dragon on the stream the other night and last night, and that was. Oh, you've got your weapons too. Can you pick them up? I think I picked up. Yeah, okay. I picked the crate up. Well, somebody can pick the crate up. Next to it. Okay. Oh, well, yes, somebody can pick the crate up. You're just going to stand there. Okay. Yeah, okay. That's a better port than I was expecting it to be. I'm not going to play all the way through it because I think I've seen enough PitFighter for now. What shall I put on next? I'm going to put on a game that everybody was really happy to see when it got emulated many years ago and seemed to have since forgotten about. It had some lockup issues in the past. I don't know if it still does. I've not seen anybody report any recently. This is Metro's Gunmaster. And maybe the problem with this one is it's called Gunmaster, which is such a generic title. I mean, what does it tell you about the game? Yeah, that scrolling is still a bit bad there. But, Gunmaster. It's an arena shooter fighter. It's one of those that stands out. It's a bit like the Mega Man Power Fighters game, the arcade one, except it's not Mega Man, and you don't pick up different weapons as far as I know. You've just got your moveset here. At least that says operate 1, so maybe there were more complex controls too. But you pick your level and you fight the person on the level. So you know, you've got your 1 starfighter, I think you automatically go to that one. But you can jump kick, you can do that, you can shoot, but you've got to kill the one enemy to progress, so in this case it's that purple one up there. The others are defending him. And yeah, I think you seem to have forgotten about this one. I'm okay. I was testing PitFighter to make sure the slapstick changes worked, and that is the only positive I can take from it, that it seems to actually work. Probably not the best way to advertise I'm doing a stream as a playing PitFighter, because most people don't want to see PitFighter, but it needed testing, so I tested it a little bit. How are you doing anyway, Cal? I don't think it's an IRQ effect for the scrolling. I think it's just the actual interrupt timers themselves are a little bit off. The Metro hardware, I think it's an image check chip. It's not properly understood. Puzzly uses it for some actual HRQ effects, and that's a bit off. Do you actually select character, or just I think it automatically moves actually that you selected. Yeah. I got it smooth at one point, but it broke other things in the game. But I'm not aware of there being a missing raster effect anyway on any material I've seen. So, if anybody wants to find an original reference and prove me wrong, then that might actually help tell me something if there is an effect we're missing entirely. But I don't think there is. There are a number of other games that have similar scrolling issues. But games that do use the raster effects and similar hardware, I think Hyperdual makes extensive use of it. They work, so I'm not sure entirely. And arcade developers did like to use interrupt tricks. I had to fix them up in some SETA drivers a year or two back and got past alive and dumped, because that was not only using a fixed mid-screen interrupt, it was using the line interrupt as well, and all the row scroll effects. I mean, that was a sort of showcase, it's a prototype, but it seems to be a showcase of what the hardware could do. And it required a lot of things to be implemented properly. I know there's still a slight glitch in the ending of that one where the top lines are wrong, but in game it all works. It's just a shame the game turned into a very generic sort of collect the dots Pac-Man thing, when in some of the screenshots we've seen it seemed to have more gameplay, a sort of grab claw type feature for clicking things up and attacking enemies. But the version that was dumped, which was apparently the final prototype, has got none of that. That's one I might put on in a bit actually, because technically it's impressive looking. But yeah, this is Gunmaster from Metro. Yeah, you do pick. There we go. That's what I thought. And I think it's just one that's been forgotten about. Maybe because it did used to lock up quite often. Hopefully it doesn't anymore. If it does, then we should probably demote it to not working. I know I've been looking at a few games I was thinking maybe I should stream, and there are, I think, with the standards we set these days for what works and what doesn't work, there are some we should be denoting. Sub-Zeno's Last Fighting was one. It's a Bomberman clone, but the timings are so bad in it. You move around at sort of turbo speed, the timer's turbo speed, there's no sound, and it's never worked any better. I don't think we should be considering that to be a working game. It's one of the wrestling games on PlayStation hardware where half the graphics aren't decrypted, so the HUD's a mess, the title screen's a mess. Again, I don't know why MAME considers that to be working. I think we need to review the standards for what we consider working doesn't work, and change them. And if they've never worked, at least if they worked better at one time, they're just regressions. But some of these that I'm looking at, I can go back to the first version they were added and go, yeah, maybe this was promoted a bit prematurely, because nobody's going to have a good experience running some of them in that state. There's not many like that, but there are a couple of notable ones. The racing game Wheels on Fire is another one. The road rendering and line scroll on that are just all wrong. I don't know if that was demoted actually. I think it got promoted at one point, but there are ones that I keep thinking maybe I should look at and try and improve. Yeah, Speed Racer's ground is a mess. I don't think that should be marked as working. I don't know if that's a CPU bug or what, but the data it puts in the video RAM doesn't seem to make sense for rendering the road. I did have a look at that one. But yeah, when you can't see what you're driving on and you can't see what you're avoiding in terms of the ground properly, yeah, I don't think that should be marked as working. I thought it had been demoted actually, but maybe it hadn't. I mean, I think sometimes the excitement of getting things working, or seeming to work, you get a bit carried away with it at times and you go, oh yeah, it works great, fantastic, and then you realise, yeah, maybe it isn't doing that. I mean, I've been guilty of that before. Humans Grand Striker, because I could play it without the pitch rendering properly, so I thought like it works, it's playable, you know roughly where you are from the goals. But yeah, eventually I think we decided to just knock it down to not working because the line zoom thing on that, I still can't work it out to this day. It seems to be some sort of non-linear technique, and doesn't make any sense to me. The sequel works fine, but that one, no. Strangely enough, the Tecmo World Cup 94 and Vigo Soccer that use a very similar chip, just don't use it in the same mode, look okay. But Grand Strike itself is just... And I'm kind of hoping somebody does come along and fix that up one day, because I'm out of ideas. It's one of those where I don't think it's worth me investing any more time in looking at it, because I just have invested so much time without any results, just making it worse. So, there are lots of things like that. You know, fresh eyes on something is always handy. Phil is the one who really looked at the Tatsumi hardware and studied it. I think he's got several other boards. I mean, obviously he's got a big fight board because he added a clone set recently. But those boards are quite rare. So, and they're often big setups. Not easy to get running, you need all your controls right and everything else. But yeah, this is a decent little game. I always forget you've got kick move too. And you can do, you can do down attacks like that. I think this could have done with an extra button. It feels like it's forced into 2 buttons when a 3rd button would have simplified things a bit. But 2 button was pretty much standard for a lot of cabinets. So no, Apache is, the ground's still broken on Apache. I've not sorted that one up for a while. I think Lock On was sorted, wasn't it? That'd be pretty good. But Apache, yeah, I seem to remember the ground was still an issue. I think Phil does have one. Don't quote me on that though. But Phil obviously has a lot of talent, but not much time, as is often the case. I know Phil lost some progress on things before as well. He had Atari's Metal Maniacs running at one point, but lost the driver in a hard drive crash, which happens to the best of us. And I think due to just how much work that is, nobody really wants to rewrite it. So again, it's probably going to come down to Phil finding time and hoping he remembers something from when he did it the first time. But yeah, this was a Gunmaster, which, I kind of like. And I think more people should be playing it than are. So yeah, I think the title, because of Gunmaster, you expect maybe a light gun game. It doesn't tell you anything about the game. Yeah, maybe that's what they were going for. As I say, this felt kind of Mega Man-like. Choose the characters, fight the different bosses in the arenas. So, just pouring another drink. Metro have quite a few good games or ideas. I say Puzzly is another one. I remember spending a lot of time on the sequel, Puzzly 2 on PGM, which was licensed. The idea was licensed from Metro. I'm going to go with an early 3D game. This is an Atari one. Speaking of Atari trying out lots of things, this is iRobot. Nothing to do with the movie. This is an early solid 3D game from, I think, 83? Yeah, 83. Apparently the rendering on this isn't perfect either. There's meant to be some sort of sub-pixel stuff going on. But yeah, Atari may be known for the 3D vector games like Star Wars. But then you've got ones like this, and solid 3D in 83. This is really impressive. And you've obviously got a drawing thing as well, because it was such a novelty to have any kind of 3D like this. But you know, this has got sort of a Lord of the Rings feel. You know, don't jump when the eye's watching you. Wait, you clear that. You jump to that. You go up there. You blast the eye. Yeah, it's an impressive game. I think this does work better like this. This wouldn't have worked so well as a vector game. The solid fill really gives it some weight. As impressive as things like Tempest are, I really like what's going on with this one. Unfortunately, this is a very rare game because apparently most of the chips didn't work or something like that. So, you know, half of what they made couldn't be used. Oh, I wasn't watching the eye. Oh, I'm not very good at this. I'll say that much. Oh. Okay, that was a very short credit. You see, it even tells you can play the doodle game here. It's one of those where pressing a button in a track mode, the track advances the sequence, which is very uncommon too. There aren't many games where pressing stuff in a track does something. Gauss Panic 4 does, but I'm not going to play that one on stream. That's got a little track sequence where it encourages you to press a button for fan service. Oh, I thought I'd get away with that. So it's a classic game, and I'm quite bad at it. I think we've established I'm quite bad at most games, so maybe that's not a surprise. Yeah, somebody had reported that there was meant to be some sub-pixel rendering going on this, which needs looking at some point, because when this was first emulated, it was pushing what would run at full speed on MAME, so I don't think anybody was looking into making it 100% accurate, because it was already a challenge to get working at all. Did not jump with eyes red, I know, unfortunately. I'm trying to rush it and jumping into things. Alright. Gauss Panic 2 is still broken. The protection MCU is not dumped. And Gauss Panic 2 quiz version, Gauss Panic 2 special edition, they're all still broken. There's the Kaneko protection device. It's the same family as CPUs as B-Rat Boys and Shogun Warriors and the like, but it's used in a different way. They seem to be using it for some kind of maybe graphic copying and things like that. Maybe some decompression. Kay was looking at it recently, and as was Olivia, but they don't know where the index is for the graphics. Maybe it's internal, maybe it's encrypted somehow in the ROMs. And it's not a common type of MCU either, so the decap guys aren't sure what to do with it. I think, from what I remember, the MCU type is also used in some older car computers. No hidden surfaces. Is that this one? I wasn't paying attention. I guess that's probably something to do with it being solid fill, not vector, if that's what this one. Anyway, yeah, I like this game, but you have to take your time and concentrate, and I'm not doing that with it right now. Ooh, okay. Okay. This one got some improvements recently. Hoei's Future Flash. There's an annoying click going on now. I'm going to turn the volume down. It sounds pretty bad. Right. In the last few months, the scrolling was implemented, so you can see the ground is scrolling now. I don't know what Noriyuku is. It sounds like a John game. I have to look at that one off stream. I'm always a bit wary of games I don't know. So this is kind of missile commandy. People requested this one be emulated a lot for a long time. It seemed to be quite a popular game back in the day for some reason, but again, it's mostly forgotten now. Because Amstar, I think it was licensed it to the US as laser bases. But it's clearly just a fairly cheap clone of Missile Command. The odd thing with this one is there were several versions dumped, and there's a secret ROM check in all of them. They all fail it, so I don't know if every set that's dumped is bad, or if the ROM check was never actually worked properly in the first place. They're always off by a small amount though, which kind of suggests small hacks to the code were made, or there's a few bad bytes. I'm not sure. Could just be they made quick bug fixes and never updated the checksums. But yeah, this one didn't work at all for many years. It's got some annoying protection. And again, it's one of those, why would you protect something that's just like this? I mean, if somebody wanted to bootleg this type of game, they'd be bootlegging Missile Command, which they did plenty of. Ah, yeah, New York, New York, which was also released as Arcadia, wasn't it, in Japan? It's a decent little game. I mean, it's maybe a bit too much luck involved in New York for my liking, because you've got to blast the circle where everything spawns, haven't you? And you can't always get enough hits on to get a high score. It was being played in a YouTube high score challenge by Zypho and a number of others a couple of months ago, and it just seemed very frustrating to get scores in. But the speech samples are quite good. Early speech samples in general are. You've got what, the Stratovox Speak and Rescue, that's got early speech. Another one people remember for the speech more so than the game. There's one on my list actually that apparently has got some sort of speech region. I don't know if it's looked up correctly actually, because there's a comment in the drive about not sure when a certain effect's meant to be used. But yeah, I mean, this is playable and it looks better now. The ground scrolls properly. I think that is it, the last previous release where the scrolling was added. I know it's quite recent. Maybe it's not even in the release yet. There's a second phase to this if you get there. Oh, no. Fortunately, it is one of those where as soon as you lose all your bases, it is over. But yeah, they can't spell unlimited. Laser base actually has a blue background. This is the version that was licensed by Amstar for use in America. But I don't know why. I mean, I never quite understood why some arcade games go for this blue background. You often got boards that were hacked to take away the blue background too, because people didn't like it. I mean, maybe that's why the other set fails. Maybe somebody's hacked the background to be black. I really don't know. I think it was the Data East one. The Sega one, Astro Blaster? I think one of those has got a blue background. And everybody said it was emulated incorrectly because they were used to playing PCBs where it had been modified. Was Astro War? Astro something. No. This is trackball, so I'm using a mouse. So it's better than Taito's Colony 7, I want to say. I'm out of bullets. That's not good. Yeah, once you're out of bullets, it's luck. Are these going to kill me? Are these not? Well, eventually they'll kill me because no way to get any more bullets. Oh, I survived the round. Oh no, they used more bullets up again. Satan's Hollow. I never really got on with that one. I've played it a few times. It's one of those that I remember playing when I first discovered MAME. Maybe just because it's got Satan in the title, and thought it's not really my type of game. But you know, you were young and you think maybe it's going to be a horror game or something like that, and it's really not. But yeah, this was Future Flash or Laser Basers, which has been improved recently. It seems alright. I'm sure I've got to a second stage of it before. After this part where the planet goes off, yeah, it's going to do something now, isn't it? There's more to it. Yeah, there's a vertical scrolling part. Yeah. See, if you're good enough, you get to this stage. I was not even born in 1980. So, you know, I was born the year this came out, in 81. Actually, yeah, I've got 1981, 1,981 YouTube subscribers at the time of broadcasting this, which is my year of birth. Strange little thing that. Okay, I'm going to put on one that most people know. Not really play it properly, but a personal favourite that I think could do with somebody documenting it a bit more. Right. This is the NewZealand Story. Now, what I'm actually going to show here is that there are quite a few different versions of this in MAME. I mean, this is the parent set, TNZX. TNZS. And this has the usual intro. This is all standard. This is a great tune in this as well. I love the music. But the first level is like this. And if you just fire up NewZealand Story MAME, you find this level. This is a little secret thing. But yeah, this is the NewZealand Story. This is the parent set. It's got that level layout. Now, if we load the clone, TNZSO, same intro. this has this level layout. This is considered the old version. Completely different first level. I mean, I don't know which level I prefer, but it's a different level. Yeah, and the home ports are based on different versions too. You see, that's the first level in this version, and I don't know if there's a secret in this version on that level. But then we've got this set, TNZSOA set. Yeah, that's the older version is the first level on some of the console versions. This version is possibly a hack. We don't know. It's again, it's got a different level. It starts with loads of enemies, which is unnatural. I mean, this feels like a hack, because why would you start in such a difficult situation? But this is this level. But obviously, it was on an original PCB, but maybe it'd been modified. Or maybe it's just meant to be a really hard version, or an unfair version from the start. So I don't know if this level is a later level from the actual game, because I've not memorised all the levels. And one thing I'd like somebody to do is actually map out all the game. Maybe find a way to dump out the data from the ROM to create the map. Yeah, that's why I think this one might be a hack, because it doesn't feel like first level difficulty. Too many tricky little jumps. Starts you in a nasty place. Even for this one, you have to grab this and go up here. So yeah. It says it's round 1 too, but and also then there's this version, which is considered a prototype. This one boots straight to the demo mode, but its presentation is more bare bones. It probably is a prototype. Same intro. This one starts with this level. Which again is different to all the other three. Understandably, a prototype's going to have different levels. They're not sorted out where they go yet, which is why the other one could also be a prototype, a location test if they're testing how people reacted to a much more difficult first level. I mean, it happens. But I mean, this feels like a later level too, because it's got all the different enemy types, but they were probably trying to show off everything the game could do rather than gently introduce you. This level. I thought they started with the old version level, not the prototype level, but maybe I'm misremembering. So that's 4 different versions of NewZealand Story with 4 different first levels. I can load up the Mega Drive version. I don't think I've got the FM Towns one on here. Oh. Good to see you again anyway, Santori. I'm not very good with pronunciations of your names, but I'll try. That is not how you play the NewZealand Story. Still minus 15 over there. So yeah, maybe this is that level, isn't it? Is this the prototype level from the previous one? There are just so many. Yeah, I'm gonna have my little balloon. Yeah, this is the one that was in the prototype, isn't it? This is the prototype level. Yeah. Yeah, Nicola did write new icons. So yeah, this is the prototype. The Mega Drive version is based on the prototype level. I think the FM Towns one was based on a different level too. It's very confusing. Why are there so many different versions of the NewZealand Story, and why has nobody mapped them all out yet? I mean, I've seen maps for some, maybe I think the Spectrum version, but I've not seen a complete set of maps for the arcade one. Yeah, so I save and I get them mixed up sometimes. But yeah, I think that is based on the prototype one then. What else have we got? We've got the Master System version. This one's probably based on the same version of the Mega Drive version. It seems a bit fast. Maybe it's the PAL version and the NTSC speeds. But yeah, there's I mean there's sites dedicated to Spectrum maps, aren't there, where you can get maps of pretty much everything, which is really good. I mean, they're impressive. But yeah, I don't know why there are so many versions of the New Zealand Story. I mean, if the home ports are based on the prototype, which it looks like they were, I thought they were based on the old version, but yeah, maybe they are based on that prototype one. It makes sense that if they got the game early, they based it on the location test. But then it evolved to the old version, that weird one that might be a hack, then the later version. For such a good game, it feels like they weren't sure what they wanted to do with it. I mean, it is one of my absolute favourite arcade games to play, but I've never mapped it all out, and I'm not familiar with all the differences, and I'm not especially good at it like most other games, so it's a curious one, because you might think there'd be 2 different versions, but there are 4 different versions. And I like the home ports too. I mean, I've played it on Spectrum, I think, played it on the CPC, played it on the Mega Drive. It's just a good game. What am I going to put up next? I'm going to put up a recent edition. This is Get Away. Not Get Away, Get Away. From 1989 by Universal. This uses a TMX 9900 and is claims to be the first 16-bit game. I mean, technically the TMS 9900 is a 16-bit processor. There's no sound. It's an old 1989 Universal game. The palette's not right. And it's basically a Monaco GP clone boys type thing, but with a CPU. This was recently added. I mean, I wasn't even aware this existed until it was dumped and added a couple of weeks ago. So it's nice to see it. Obviously, there were a lot of this type of Monaco type clones back then. And that's a slippery bit road where you couldn't go on it. It's just a shame they're all discrete sound. Oh, if you hit the side, you get the explosion on the side of the car where your tyres burst. So there were some nice little touches like that aren't in all these games. I think this was supported. This was supported in the previous main release, wasn't it? It's one of the new additions. I think I've taken out part of my cart. Oh. So, and then hit the side again. I don't know if there's any headlight section. I mean, it feels like there should be, but maybe there isn't. Tunnel section. It's decent enough. But once you've played one of these games, you've played them all, really. There's not much difference between them worth writing home about. I think this one's got a few extras, like being able to bash the cars at least. Although don't do it too much. I mean, it's 1979. It's early. Isn't this before Monaco GP, actually? Thinking about it. Wasn't Monaco GP really late for a discrete game? I'm not going to be playing Diego and Dora this time because I played them last time. I played Diego last time. No, they just uploaded the video of Dora and the Mermaids. Did you see the Dora video of Dora and the Mermaids? That was actually dumped while I was doing the last stream, so as soon as I got off stream, I had it to add. Yeah, okay, both were 79 then. So, still late for a discrete game, but not as late as I thought. So, yeah, it'd probably be influenced by Monaco GP rather than this being the original. It's a new edition. It's worth showing off for rarity as much as anything else. But, yeah, it may be a bit more fun if there was some sound emulation. Silent games, I think I tend to, if something's completely silent, I tend to put it in that not really working bracket, because to me sound is an important part of any game. Next on the list, I think I'm going to go with one I emulated some years ago, Table Tennis Champions, a Spanish game by Gamart. This one uses an odd blitter technique which took forever to get right. Didn't help that there were bad dumps of the game for a long time. But I seem to remember it reads and writes, and you have to interpret things based not only on the data but the address as part of the command. One of the parameters. It's a bit weird, but it's a nice little ping pong game. I mean, it gets ridiculously hard, I'll tell you that much. I've tried recording a perfect run of this at like 10% speed, and if you're a frame off on the later matches, you don't stand a chance. The computer just goes super aggressive to try and get you to put another coin in, then it will down the rank as soon as you put another coin in. It's typical cheap arcade design in that sense, but I like the presentation, I like the sound effects, and if you want a ping pong game to play in the arcades, you could definitely do worse than this one. It's fast paced as well. I mean, people talk about how the Midway games were fast paced, NBA Jam and the like, and how the recently done baseball one was going for that. Very fast-paced gameplay. This is the same, you know, as soon as you've scored or you know, missed the ball, it's off again. And you've got lives in the corner, so if you miss too often, even if you're winning, you lose. And this is actually the easy match. And there's not much to it, it's just ping pong. I think eventually the background changes for the different events. But there you go, you see, very fast paced. I might put on the Dora Mermaids game in a little bit, because it's one that's just been emulated, but I'm not going to spend more than a few minutes to see. You can choose to continue at the current store or from zero score, which is a nice little selection. So it's a well-made professional game, Table Tennis Champions. It does exactly what it's meant to do. It does it with a good pace, and there's an arcade game. Yeah, I like it. It's not my favourite arcade ping pong game. I think that would be TCH's Speed Spin, although that's much slower paced. Maybe not quite as good as stolen sound effects are definitely nothing new in Spanish and Korean games, are they? Again, you've got to have lightning reflexes. You go the wrong way. There's another game on this type of hardware called Spider, which is a Kicks clone, although there was a PC version of that one too with adult backgrounds. The arcade Spider does not have adult backgrounds. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of AntStream and other streaming services. I mean, we've done a lot to try and preserve things for the future, and temporary services like that have been a big problem for us. You know, things like Sega channels, a lot of content lost, so I'm not a big fan of anything that's temporary. I like physical ownership of things. So Antstream not really for me. I'd prefer it if they weren't doing what they were doing, but just a personal opinion there. Anyway, I said I'd put the Dora one on. So yeah, we just emulated this. Sean dumped it while I was doing the previous stream. This is the educational shark cookie. Dora saves the mermaids. I'm just going to play Silly C, I think, from it. Handheld games, they did quite a few things for Jakks. But you know, this it seems alright. I guess if you were sort of a kid, you might enjoy having this growing up, but I think this is not enough content. I mean, I quite like the first game bit teaching you Spanish numbers. That's educational. Silly C, I'm not so sure about. I mean, it's just getting you to spell out different types of fish that don't even exist. I mean, you get the wrong letter, it doesn't count. Okay, uh-oh. Yeah, I did a video on this yesterday because that's when it was dumped. That's why I don't want to cover it too long today, because I've, say, very recently done it. It's quite slow paced. You just have to wait for the C to show up. No, the letter C, not the C, because there's plenty of C on the screen. And sometimes they take forever to show up because that's just random. Years ago, C. It can fly, so yeah, maybe it's a bird, but they can all fly. Half bird, half fish, half cat. That adds up to 1.5. Maybe a third bird, third kiss. You know what I mean. It's a catfish. There's a dogfish. It's not a godfish. It doesn't begin with G. You have to jump to get the D. It teaches some basic gaming techniques. I mean, I do question the educational value of it, but I think it's difficult to understand that age group. I don't have my own kids, so I can't really comment. And times have changed since when these were released anyway. I mean, everybody's got mobile phones with educational programs on and hooking up to things. And even the educational consoles now are Android-based devices. Oh yeah, you know, it's cowfish. I think you get the idea. I mean, that's Dora saves the mermaids. It's very difficult for me to comment on how good it is as a kids game because I just don't know. It's not the type of thing I grew up with. I grew up with sort of an 8-bit home computer and ended up learning programming on BASIC and stuff like that. So it's just a different type of product for a different market. Where are we going? I want to put Eeekk on. I don't remember how many E's there are and how many K's there are. 3 E's and 2 K's. This is by Epos Corporation in 1983. Now, Epos had their own board, which is the TriStar 8000 and TriStar 9000. And they developed some games for them, and they're quite rare games. It was a sort of a bitmap based system. And, you know, this is a Halloween type thing. I might put Spongebob Fry Cook on later. We'll see. I do quite like Fry Cook games. That's a decent one. Yeah, this is Eeekk. This is a rare one. This is the TriStar hardware version. I think Epos are better known for SuperGlob. Or the Glob, which was quite heavily bootlegged. This is maybe not such a good game. You just have to punch ghosts. I'm sure there's more you can do too. You can see why this one isn't as well known as the Glob, Super Glob. It's just a bit more basic. There we go. That's all the ghosts gone. Yeah, I'm the ghost. I mean, Super Globs is great. I mean, it's one of my favourites. You can climb the ceilings, avoid the enemies, go up and down the lifts. This one, you know, you're just going around punching ghosts and getting out of the furniture if they hide in the furniture, I believe. But, I mean, this wasn't done for a long time. It was... I mean, it's like... I mean, there's still some Epos games undumped. Catapult's still not got a complete dump. Igmo, IGMO only recently got the bomb dumped for the colours. But what is surprising is there are now 2 versions of this dumped too. And I'll show you the other one in a bit. I don't know how you avoid the witch, but this is the dedicated TriStar hardware. I played Diego last time. I'm trying not to repeat things on stream. FFF. That was a fail. But yeah, Eeekk, the earlier dump we got for Eeekk was the Pac-Man hardware one, because as well as doing on the TriStar boards, Epos did the conversions, which is where their games were most popular. I mean, the Glob version on Pac-Man is probably the most popular. And it's got a very different look and feel to it. The different style fonts. It's a bit slow and flickery, this one, unfortunately. But it's an entirely different piece of programming compared to the dedicated hardware version. So we are actually quite lucky to have both versions dumped. So here you're punching monsters instead of ghosts. It looks like a different game. It looks like somebody played Eeekk and made their own version of it. I do appreciate the little Venus flytrap there. It's the same with Super Glob. The dedicated version is very different to the... You know, oh, I died. The Pac-Man hardware version. In the case of Super Glob, the Pac-Man hard version is far better. There was colour clash in the, I think, the original version because it's a bitmap-based hardware, and they were just, I think, probably zoring the colours together for fast sprites like you find in some home computer games. In this one, it's Pac-Man hardware, so it's got dedicated sprites, so it doesn't have to do that. Although the limited number of sprites means it's having to flicker things to get all the sprites on screen, I think. And the spiders. I don't even voice this version. Power Surge. I'm sure I played Power Surge, but it doesn't. I can't quite remember what it is. Is that one of the Midway ones? I think it is. It Midway? Right. D for David. Oh, Vision. I'll have to have a look at Power Surge. What is Power Surge? Vision Electronics, P-Surge. Time Pilot hardware. Oh. I had something like this on the CPC, where you were going around a circuit board, and components. I think that was just called Circuit Wars or something like that. Was it on the Amiga? I don't know what I'm doing. Can't go that way. Can't go that way. what I'm meant to do? Is this... Are the colours wrong on this then? Is this a no proms dumped case? I mean, it looks kind of okay. Yeah, I see. It says no proms dumped. Yeah, I guess it just looks good because it looks reasonable because they're time pilot proms instead of the real ones or something like that. I don't know what I'm doing. I know I'm controlling that one. I mean, if we're talking undumped proms, I'd really like to see this one dumped. It's a terrible Kyle Hodgetts game by Dutech called The Masters of Kin, which is a track and field conversion. And if anybody converted their track and field to this, they really got what they deserved, because it's just bad. Like most Kyle Hodgetts games. I mean, Dark Tower's okay, the Double Dragon one, but again, why would not just want Double Dragon? But this is I want to see the colour bombs dumped. I want to see another board turn up. But I'm guessing nobody converted this and left it as this because track and field is so much better. Oh, and I died just by walking forwards. Oh dear. What? Why? Up's jump, by the way. It's gone for that whole home computer thing where up is jump. Just to rub in how bad it is. I mean, I don't know if I'm meant to be killing zombies, but because of the lack of prompts, it looks like I'm killing zombies. On a cliffside. With awful collision. Oh, and you start back there and you walk forward and you die. Could you see anybody keeping this converted from a track and field for more than one play? I mean, even converting it and then actually installing it in an arcade and not just going, no. It's just I mean, I'm sure you can make up some colours, but I discourage that because then you'll probably get people selling it on a PCB saying it's the real thing and trying to charge too much money for it to try and get us to buy it to get the proms that, yeah, it's... I'm just hoping this... Oh, thank you Slam2K for the following. Oh, I got a high score. Still got the track and field music. Because that's the one thing you get with the Kyle Hodgetts games. Even with the Dark Tower, it's got the Double Dragon effects. The one on Ghosts and Goblins hardware still got that music. Because he was not a musician or an artist. So, anyway, there we go. The proms would be nice. The game is terrible. Nobody's ever going to play it. Yeah. Right, where are we going? I'm going to go with another Russian game, a Soviet game. Right, this is Gorodki, 1988 Terminal. One we know who made. The bad dump sign is just because it was dumped with an adapter rather than per chip. Happens with some of these, a bit tricky. Right, got a bit of an track demo there too. And a bit of a tune. Right, this one is a throwing sticks game. So you aim the stick, and each thing at the top is meant to represent one of the symbols down the side. So this is the first one, this is the star, the second one. You've got to try and destroy them with as few shots as possible. This is the sort of logs. Missed. Got something. If you miss, you move further up the screen. There's some wind and the like that change the direction. This is two cannons. Got some of it. This is a bunker, a tent, I'm not sure. That is 2 army men. It's not a type of bird. This is a target. Let's say the wind's blowing that way now. You can tell the wind because of the general movement of your cursor. This is a fork, although it's missing the pitchfork, missing the middle bit. Arrow. So there's nothing else quite like this. This is one of those which is actually worth playing just because you're not going to find another game that has this exact gameplay. This is a squiggly line. It's probably a snake, isn't it? This is a ping pong bat. Lobster. And I think you've got a limited number of throws, and after that your score is your score. Yeah, you know, it's original, and it kind of reminds you of games you might have just played without arcade, just, you know, with sticks, with something being thrown at them. No, I mean, you're not playing as a rotating stick here, you're throwing a rotating stick. Shall I give it another credit? I have completed all the stages on it before. It's a little slow to respond. Right. So you start off... I'm doing worse this time than the first time. Let's signal how badly I'm doing it. Oh, actually it's time-based, isn't it? There's a timer down the bottom, that's how it turns it. Oh, time and sticks. Left is your time, right is your number of sticks remaining. You can do most of them in a single shot if you aim it correctly. But I'm not aiming. It's probably the closest thing is probably a bowling game, isn't it? There are worse games to play. Yeah, then it goes backwards and forwards like that. And yeah, I did worse that time. That was not a good run. That was a bad one. But yeah, that's playable. If you want a quick blast or something, that is a perfectly playable game. I said I'd do fry cook games, didn't I? Which I think is quite good. A bit easy. This is one of the plug and play games from Jakks. Yeah, shooting gallery with a stick. So Spongebob, Squarepants, the Fry Cook games. This is well presented. You can choose your character, Spongebob. Bizarre. So it's a track and field style game, but your training mode. So A to jump, right, tap right to speed burst. So yeah. Starts off easy. I mean, as far as plug and plays go, this is probably one of my favourite ones that we've got emulated. So you get slightly more difficult training level if you want. Stricter time limits. It saves your progress too. Select new event. So what's this one? Air party. Oh yeah, this one is a bit... I'm not sure what to do in this one. Just gonna keep this in the air. It's a bit like you know, your old California games type of things. I think I recorded a video of this when the sound emulation wasn't very good. different techniques if you hit it in different ways. But yeah, this, if you've played like the California Games type things on the old 8-bits, this has got a very similar feel to it in terms of you know what happens. I think if you hit different directions and stuff, you can do special moves while it's in the air. There we go, you see. I hit it up in the air and I did the whirler. I don't know all the different combinations and I keep dropping it. I might make a new video at some point. But yeah, so... No, there are lots of bad Spongebob games. I'm not a huge fan of the show. I've never really spent any time watching it. A bit after my time, really. But you've got a say jelly sport combo. This is like a diving trampoline type thing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I enjoyed getting that one emulated. Well, I did have a game key slot as well, and the game key, the Nick game key keys are dumped. So there was this game key that was dumped as well. The original Spongebob plug and play, unfortunately, doesn't seem to be one that's easy to dump. It seems to be one where the code is all in the main CPU, which is in a glob, all integrated on the die. There are two globs, but there's very few lines between them, so it doesn't. It looks more like it's part of the CPU based on the decap image. This is actually a remake of one of the games that was in that first unit, which. This version's got better graphics because the technology in the older one was much more primitive. But so it's just a shame it seemed impossible to dump. Yeah, there's a Dora game key. I think again there's a video of it on the channel somewhere. This is a very simple breakout game using SpongeBob's head, as you can see. It could do with being a bit faster. It's not quite got the right balance of challenge, I feel, even for a kid's game. But that might just be my opinion. Just yeah, say I can just take my hands off the keyboard and go. Oh yeah, I'm going to press escape now. I say it seems really well presented, and I prefer the base SpongeBob Fry Cook games over the game key. The game key, the gameplay is not quite there. I'm going to go from one breakout game to another. This is the Block Kuzushi, which is on PlayStation type hardware. Now this was released on the PlayStation as Blockbuster. It's very strange to see it as an arcade release in 2000 when it's a budget PlayStation game, but it's a nice little breakout game to be Arkanoid type game, to be fair. You can control the direction of the ball. See, this is how you do this type of game. I'm not doing the Dora game key tonight. I'm trying to mix things up a bit. Might do the Dora game key another night. Okay, I'm doing worse at this than usual. Yeah, this is one I don't see many people talk about, even when they talk about this type of game. I don't know if it's just slipped under the radar. So I'll probably do Dora Genki in the next stream. We've had Fry Cook games, we've had the game key for that. I might also do some of the V.Smile Dora games, because I think some of those work now as well. They didn't used to work. But that will be another stream. I'm not sure exactly which games were on the V.Smile, but there were quite a lot of educational ones on there. And one thing that did happen last year is the controls were fixed for a lot of the later V.Smile games. Previously they weren't playable, but now they all seem to actually play at least. Don Den Lover, is that the Othello type one? Othello. I mean, Dynex thing. Not really my type of game, from what I remember. I can't provide download links or websites, unfortunately. The Dora V.Smile stuff is part of the MAME software list set. The V.Smile BIOS is part of any standard MAME set for a recent version, but I can't tell you where to get them. Yeah, Othello, not really my thing. I mean, it doesn't feel like an arcade game. I think Dynex did a good job of their presentation for the type of games they made, but I wouldn't go out my way to play them. Yeah, that's a good game to play actually. I'll note that one down for a future stream. I mean, there are quite a lot of good games that are variations on Breakout. The Data East prototype Ghost Lop I really like, although Data East tried that concept so many times without it ever really taking off. I mean, there was the versions on the cassette system, Grapplock, Buster, which evolved into Ghost Lop, and it's possible none of them ever saw wide distribution. I don't think they ever quite nailed down the formula they wanted for it. But Ghost Lop's a good one if you've not played Ghost Lop. You change the colour of the ball to destroy different things. I don't want to play too much of this one either, because it is just Breakout, but it's an impressive little Breakout game that I fired up and thought, I never see anybody mention this one. And then I looked and found it had a PlayStation release that also nobody ever mentions. Not sure why. Maybe people are just bored of this type of game by this point. It plays well, it's smooth, you've got good control over the ball. You've got a time limit so you can't spend too long messing around. I think in terms of F3 puzzle games, Landbreaker's my favourite. That's not a ball one, that's just a puzzle game. But Landbreaker's really good. Not always the easiest one to understand. Not played it for many years, so I might struggle with it now, but I know I always enjoyed it. And Cleopatra Fortune. Cleopatra Fortune is a fantastic game. There we go. Anyway, this eventually ends up with branching paths like your classic F3 puzzle games as well. So you choose Zone A, Zone B, or Zone Z, and the likes. I'll call that one there. Ooh. Let's go with a shooter. Maybe a slightly disappointing shooter. But, this is SemiCom's Diet Family, which 2001. I thought it was going to be a full-blown shoot 'em up. It's closer to something like Gallagher with scrolling backgrounds. You choose your character. I'll choose the cat that's called Fat. Yeah, that was block Kuzushi, which apparently is just a common name for block breaker games in Japan. There's lots of games with similar titles that aren't related. You see, visually this reminds me of Captain Tomaday from Neo Geo. It's got that sort of cutesy scrolling feel. But gameplay wise, it's definitely more of a Gallagher type thing than a regular shooter that doesn't really do much. Just shooting the patterns. Pretty cool star sprites. I mean, I think that's mostly known for being the versus shooter, so it doesn't need the fancy backgrounds. But yeah, I mean, that's like a versus version of this type of thing. But yeah, I like SemiCom, but I don't know, this one never quite clicked with me, and I don't think it clicked with that many people because I don't see it mentioned. I think most people want to see the Cutie Fatty game dumped, but there's some debate over if that was even released. I mean, we've never seen a PCB for it, and that wasn't SemiCom, that was some other smaller developer. But that one did look like a proper vertical shooter instead, whereas this is this. And this is better than Toyland Adventure. I'll give you that. I mean, Toyland Adventure is probably a low point for SemiCom in terms of creativity. It's just the most generic single screen platform ever made. But yeah, I mean the art in this is well. The backgrounds they look good. The sprite work is absolutely fine. The music's very generic SemiCom. They seem to use the same type of tune everywhere. And sound effects, very generic. I think SemiCom's weak point was often sound, although I'm glad they didn't always just use sampled sound. They did actually use proper iron chips in many cases. Bonga Bonga. Well, Bonga Bonga's not much of a game, is it? It's an experience. I mean, I guess without the cap, it's not even that. There's the boss health bar at the top as well. I'm sure most of the time when people have loaded this up, they've actually loaded it by mistake when they wanted to load up, say, Data East, Sky, Go, and just thought this was that, and then clicked on that instead. There we go. Stage. Again, very Gallagher-like. You get your shoot percentage after this. They're even coming out and inspired with the Gallagher patterns. This one. Mystery. Yeah, this one's on Hyperstone type hardware. I didn't do the CPU emulation for Hyperstone, but I did do the video emulation, so it's an odd one in the sense that it doesn't use raster effects to split the screen, but every sort of 16 line section of the screen has its own sprite list, and also the hardware's glitchy and doesn't output the bottom sort of 4 pixels. Yet many of the games do display data there, but don't clip properly there. But you can't get the hardware to display those lines at all. It just, or if you do, it's completely distorted and out of sync. So you end up with a weird resolution of sort of about 232 pixels instead of 240. But yeah, that's Diet Family. It might be more worth playing than I ever gave it a chance with. I'm not sure. It seems better than I remember. It's got some interesting style of art. So yeah, let's put something I've been looking at recently on that's going to bore everybody to death, but we've been doing these fruit machines, and this would be a nice big machine with flashy lights and everything else. But this is the Sonic the Hedgehog one. I did a preview video of this. In fact, it's all mouse driven. If you've got clickable artwork enabled, you can press the pound coin there to insert money. You can hit start here, and you can just spin them. And these are fruit machines. They're gambling machines. But you know, it's got your classic Sonic music in it, or a very short loop of it. You know, all the machines were themed. Shall I? That part's not random, by the way. If you save state before that chance thing, it will always give you the same option, always the same result. Well, I won some money. I won £7. But yeah, there are so many of these, and MAME does need to get a grip on emulating them all, because some of them are becoming extremely rare. I mean, even getting good scans of the artwork to make proper quality artwork for them is becoming tricky. Luckily, some of them have been scanned in the past, but for a lot of them in the other emulators, people are just using flyer images that have been upscaled, and I don't know. I think a lot of them have already been lost to time. There we go. If you do get the jackpot, it plays the Sonic Extra Life sound effect, but it'll be a while. So I mean, if I save state here, is this one random? Nudge. Load state. Nudge. No, you see, it's completely not random. It's always nudge. No matter how many times I hit the save state, it's already decided it's nudge. So yeah, you can use emulators to see just how fixed and rigged some of the elements of the fruit machines are. How you think you've got an illusion of choice, but really you're just pressing the buttons. I mean, there is skill involved in these, but if it doesn't want to pay you money, it's not going to pay you money. It's up to you to lose the money it does want to pay you. It's, you know, if you purposely get the lowest thing when you could get a higher thing on the nudge trail and nudge trail. No, this trail thing. When it, I don't know all the terminology. Sorry. I mean, it's not something I'm overly familiar with. But yeah. Oh, about the. Should I hold them all? What happens then? I don't know. Anyway, I'm just happy that, you know, we're starting to get some of them emulated, because this is Sonic the Hedgehog, and Sonic the Hedgehog is obviously iconic gaming character. And it's the same with the you know, when we did the Mario Roulette. I mean, I'm not going to want to play this. I mean, this is even a worse game than the Sonic thing I was just playing. You literally just insert coin, you bet, you jump, you win or you lose. So I won 32 coins. That is it. And at least the fruit machine's got different features, different mini games. This is just insert a coin, jump, jump, lose. Insert a coin, jump, jump, lose. Insert a coin, jump, jump, lose. And this was aimed at kids in Japan. This was a mini cabinet which took tokens that you got exchanged for money, and it could exchange back for money, but it was specifically designed at a size so kids could play it. Oh, there we go. There is no skill at all involved in this. I won 1 coin. It doesn't even say token, it says coins, because it is just gambling. So yeah, relatively the fruit machines, you know, at least there is some skill involved. If it wants to pay out and you do the wrong thing, then you lose out. But they're all just gambling. If you play any for a long amount of time. Yeah, maybe that one did actually just take coins then. I don't know. I thought it took medals, but the fruit machines, yeah, if they want to pay out, they will pay out. You can select the wrong option in some of the mini games and lose it, and the next person who comes along and plays it will get the prize that you were going to win because you didn't do the simple game well enough. That one, you just press the button and it's random, or not random. Random is too kind. It's paying out based on the odds the machine is set to and nothing else. I mentioned Pastel Island earlier. I think I might stream this one before. This is on the SSV system by Visca. This is a prototype. This is the one where the Flyer, is it Flyer? Has more interesting looking gameplay than the release version. Now that startup effect's a nice little raster effect with the interrupts. This is just pre-rendered. Yeah, a lot of people do filter the things out, which is... I can understand why there's so many of them. I mean, we've been emulating a lot of Konami medal games recently, and all of them are based on the same type of gameplay. You press a button and you get your result. But they're interesting to see in terms of where IPs have been used, like that Mario one. And Nintendo approved that. Nintendo thought it was perfectly okay to have a gambling game for kids with Mario in it in Japan. I don't know. Anyway, this is Pastel Island. The shadow effect's slightly wrong there, SSV shadows, but there's lots of funky effects going on with this one. It's like a tech demo for the hardware. I mean, the whole playfield is line scrolled. Not meant to run straight into the bridge, but ultimately the game just turned into a Pac-Man style. Pick up the things. If you pick up things in certain orders, they flash more, and you get special modes, and there's a bit of slowdown that changes the multicoloured cycling. It's another game with a cat. There seems to be a recurring theme with these games. But, yeah, I've heard that some Japanese developers really don't want any mainstream attention because they kind of regret some of the things they did in the past. Some of the things that were considered acceptable over there, that on a world stage, people are going to go, no. And I don't know how true that is, but I've heard several people say that. Because the culture is very different over there. Even just some of the, the dating games where you've got the girls listed as sort of 12 years old. It's a bit dodgy. Oh yeah, the CDI. I mean, I like Hotel Mario on the CDI. I think that's actually a really good game. It could have been a proper arcade Mario game with a bit more polish. The concept is fine. You shut all the doors before they get reopened. You're rushing around shutting them. The Zelda games, yeah, they're terrible. And the less said about those, the better. Shame they don't run properly in the CDI driver, because I would like to stream them to show them, but I guess people have done that before. But the CDI driver needs a lot of work. Anyway, yeah, if you want a simple Pac-Man game, this isn't, with shooting, this isn't too bad, but I think the game was meant to be much more and turned into more of a tech demo where they just forgot about the gameplay or stripped all the uniqueness out of the gameplay. There we go, that's the star that converts everything into flashing colours with a bit of slowdown. Yeah, this is one that Showtime got dumped about 2 years ago. And it required a lot of work on the SSV driver. Luckily, I'd already done a lot of work on the SSV driver for improving Dynagear, but this required even more because this raster splits the middle of the screen in two-player mode and does lots of other raster tricks. Yeah, it's got lots of different themes, but the gameplay never really advances beyond collect the hearts. It's what the game is. And you can see maybe why it got left behind. You know, technically, we said that with the PitFighter, you know, it might look new and like something fancy, but the game's no fun. I got no jump bonus. I think that's because I can jump and I'm not even using the jump button. Oh yeah, so you can jump. I forgot that you can jump. But you get a bonus for not jumping, so if you can not jump, don't jump. Jumping doesn't even usually help you. But that's Pastel Island. I kind of like it, but it's a bit too simple. I mentioned Dynagear actually. I'll show you that one. Dynagear, I'm going to give a full playthrough at some point, but not today. Dynagear, it's a bit loud, isn't it? This effect on the title screen was not emulated for a long time. That's not actually a raster effect. There was a line table that applies to certain sprites, and it was missing. But it's used in quite a few of the SSV games in various places. Obviously, this is one of those. If you want a dinosaur-based shooter, absolutely play this one. If you like Metal Gear and stuff, absolutely play this one. Metal Gear, Metal Slug. We've got the bone effects when the dinosaurs die, and everything else. Got your helper. You've got that line scroll effect when you get hit too. That was missing because that's the same effect as the title screen, just to indicate damage. It just looks so much nicer with the effects in place that were missing for most of the time this was emulated. I mean, I'm not going to play that much of this. I did want to just put it on briefly to show the effect. What's interesting is there was a complete reprogram of this, which may or may not actually run at this point because I think the sound emulation might slow it down too much to show. This was bootlegged on Hyperstone hardware by Easy Graphics. Now, complete rewrite of the game. But that actually does this in software. This is all software. This is a frame buffer. So they obviously used the original as a reference, not the MAME emulation. Maybe it wasn't even emulated in 2000 actually, so that might make sense. Although this is a really terrible version of the game. It did have that effect on the title screen, which is why I kind of had a feeling it was missing from the original, because we had no references to the original game running. But it wasn't there. I mean, this has glitchy graphics when you attack left. There's missing pixels in the attack pattern, but that seems to be a bug in the SDK it was developed with. A number of games on the platform are like that, and it's like that on hardware. But this doesn't even have the proper explosion effects on the dinosaurs. They just explode rather than turn into bones. It's, yeah. The sound actually sort of works these days. It's not obviously not right, but at least there is some sound. Again, this was one. The sound on this is really tricky because it's a completely undocumented CPU. Olivia was having to reverse Olivia helped reverse engineer the instruction sets. Somebody else, I can't remember the name, did a lot of the work too. There was no documentation on the instruction set at all, so the code had to be studied from just the the raw hex and worked out what all the opcodes were, what everything was doing. So the fact there's any sound in this at all is kind of impressive. I mean, you can tell the sound's triggering when I'm hitting things. There's some sort of music going on. It's very quiet. I can't turn. No, you can then turn it down. Can you? But yeah, there's no reason you want to play this over the original Dynagear. This is just a really odd thing to exist because they've reprogrammed the game from scratch on Hyperstone hardware and missed a load of things out while doing it. But it exists, and it sort of gave me that hint that maybe there was a missing effect on the title screen for Dynagear, which there was in the end, which I implemented. So this is the first time I've tried to play this since the sound emulation was added at all. So as primitive as this is, I'm actually impressed to hear some sounds, and I wish I could remember the name of the person who did most of the reverse engineering work before Olivia, because I feel really bad now for not remembering their name. But I wasn't going to play this on stream. This is just sort of the flow of things. Yeah, there's actually reasonable sound. It doesn't crash. And okay, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I'm impressed. But I'll have to note that down in my recent improvements. Might be worth a place in my 2020 write-up. Okay, I learned something on the stream myself. Here's another one people might not have been aware there were different versions of. It's a bit like the NewZealand Story thing I did. Tour Outrun, which is actually maybe my favourite Outrun game. Because it's one I played back then. And, why not? You see, Turbo Outrun, people don't like it because it's only got the one chorus. There's no splitting tracks. Listen to the music. Got this tune. Now if you put on the cockpit version, it's a different tune. So at some point they decided to change which music. The music is still using the game. Both tunes are still using the game, I believe. But they swapped the order around. This version's a much more driven sound effect to start off, music track to start off with. I really like this version of music on this for the first stage better. Again, I think that's one thing people didn't like, is you can't choose your music like you can on the original Outrun. It's still a really good game. I really need to configure the control sensitivity though. The car looks better than the one in PitFighter. And it's got turbo like Chase HQ. That's why it's Turbo Outrun. It's sort of what you get if you mix Outrun with Chase HQ. But what really struck me about it at the time, when I played it back in the day, were these weather effects. I think it's the first time I'd seen weather effects like that that had a noticeable impact on how you drove the car. And it just impressed me. And Outrun doesn't have that. Unfortunately, the frame rate is actually kind of bad in this. One thing you do notice playing it now, it doesn't run as smooth as Outrun. Not that Outrun was perfectly smooth, but this is notable. But your snow as well. And obviously you can just tell it's a mess of pixels now, but on an original CRT monitor, it was quite a convincing effect. At least back then. Oh, I'm spinning out. No, I do really like Turbo Outrun. I don't think it gets the credit it deserves as a game. What time? I'm going for 2 hours. I should really look at the game, not the clock. You do get upgrades, but you can continue at any point too. Yeah, that's another thing. You can just continue to start the stage, which again some people don't like because it's meant to be a single run game. Yeah, but Turbo Outrun, if you've just heard bad things about it, give it a chance. I mean, it's still Outrun at heart. It's not as bad as any of the home ports of Outrun if you played the original ports of the original game of that. It's better than the ports that existed with this, the arcade. And it's one of the reasons I really wanted to see the the Sega CPUs decrypted, because there was no decrypted version of this, no bootlegs of this that were decrypted. So until those were decrypted, there was no way to play Turbo Outrun, the proper arcade version. It wasn't on the Sega compilations either. Yeah, Lotus games on the Amiga. I definitely had one or two of them, but this just feels bigger and bolder. I mean, the Lotus games were exceptionally good games, as was Jaguar XJ220. That was also really good on the Amiga. I think that one had a course editor as well, Jaguar, which is why I remember that one, because you can make your own little tracks. So this has got, I say I like the soundtrack. Classic Sega soundtrack. But I'm going to quit that now because I haven't configured the sensitivity properly and it's really tricky. Let's go. The sound emulation is kind of bad on this one. This one is a complete knockoff. This is Little Robin by TCH, which you will soon see is Snow Brothers, but with a Robin Hood theme. Now, the interesting thing about this one, and it has been confirmed, is this was originally being developed for the Inda arcade board that was used for Mega Phoenix and Hammer Boy. But it ended up being given to TCH, who cost reduced the hardware to far worse sound hardware, although it's not meant to be quite as bad as the emulation. And it got released, and it's, you know, on this much cheaper PCB. But what gives it away is if you go into the test mode on this is identical to the TCH, the Inda test mode, because I'm guessing that was part of the development kit that Inda let developers use. You know, it's, the signs of the connection were there. From an emulation point of view, this one was difficult to work on at first. It uses the TMS 34010, and I didn't realise that at the time because when it was dumped nobody had documented that was on the PCB, so I spent a long time trying to emulate that as if it was regular sort of sprite hardware, which didn't really work out too well because the TMS is a full processor with a load of code behind it. So lots of effects were missing, like this whole thing between levels was completely missing because I think the TMS handles that almost on its own with the programming code rather than the sprite list. And you have to know how to play it. But, you know, if you say complete Snow Brothers rip-off, most people will think of Nightmare in the Dark, which was also a complete Snow Brothers rip-off, but there was this one too. And it's not awful, it's playable. If you've beaten Snow Brothers and there's no more Snow Brothers left for you, then you can do worse. I mean, it's better than the hacked up Snow Brothers Comeback Toto. This is at least an original piece of code. Although maybe you don't want an original piece of code, maybe you just want the Snow Brothers engine with new levels and play Comeback Toto. Or the awful Snow Brothers 3 Ball Boy. Going back to driving games, I think the ultimate driving game for me in terms of sprite zooming in the arcades was actually Power Drift, not the Outrun games, because that's got the rotation, it's got the zoom, it's just got so much going on, it's got the whole roller coaster course that's made of sprites. And no home system could ever do that justice. Although there's something to try. I mean, there are good home ports of Power Drift. They're just not like the arcade game, really. I think the C64 one's pretty good. Or is that one of the terrible ones? I don't know. I don't know that much C64. I know Chase HQ on C64 was meant to be awful. And Outrun on most of the 8-bits is awful. But I think it was a decent port of Power Drift to that one. But obviously nothing like the arcade. But yeah, this is Little Robin. Robin Hood themed game. It's quite an ugly sprite if I'm not honest with you. The main sprite, most of the sprites are really good, but then you've got the main sprite that just looks like somebody's got bad makeup on. I don't know. It seems to be the weakest of all the sprites. Maybe it was a late replacement, but I really don't know. I'm no expert on game art. It just feels like it wasn't drawn by the same person as the rest of the sprites. You're your bosses. Very generic font. Yeah, Radmobile is definitely a tech demo rather than a game. And then they convert it to Rad Rally, which is the same thing but with most of the interesting bits stripped out, but apparently that's an important game for setting the standard for sort of Sega's head-to-head races. I don't know. I mean, what annoys me most on Rad Rally and Radmobile, well, Rad Rally especially, car collisions. The opponent can drive straight through the oncoming traffic. You can be following right behind your opponent, they will drive straight through the oncoming traffic will hit you. That ruins the game. I don't know how anybody thought that was okay. But yeah, I mean, Radmobile was the novelty. You got your windscreen wiper button with the alpha blending effect, and for showing off what the new hardware can do. Yeah, it's impressive, but like you say, playability itself leaves a lot to be desired. This is a European game. You probably heard a Turrican 2 sound effect if you think you recognise a Turrican 2 sound effect. In fact, I would hazard a guess that every single sound effect in most of these European games is stolen or from some standard sound library. That's just how it was. I mean, the death one's the main one, isn't it? I have actually completed most of this game on 1 credit for, but that's when I played quite a lot of it and wasn't just trying to get through the levels while talking. Galaxy Force, you mean? Yeah, Galaxy Force, it's whiteboard like Power Drift. Galaxy Drift would be a mix of Power Drift and Galaxy Force, which would be interesting. Yeah, the Jurassic Park one, on a technical level, is very impressive. You know, set pieces. It's not much of a game. There's no score system. That's why I say it's more of a ride than a game. And I think it's impossible to single credit it. I think the best players have managed to do it on 2 credits. But yeah, I like it. It's an experience. But now I said I was going to play this one last time. Gulf War 2 is Comad's hack of Twin Cobra. And of every game, and I mean every game I've worked on the emulation of, although, can I say I worked on the emulation of this? I just discovered that it was a hack of Twin Cobra and put it in the driver and it worked. This has the worst music ever. They've not just butchered Toplan's original soundtrack, they've just come up with what just seems like somebody hitting random keys on a keyboard. I mean, what is this? The gameplay still holds up because this is still at heart Twin Cobra, and Twin Cobra is a decent Toplan published by Taito shooter. But everything Comad have added to the game, changing the game, have made the experience worse. Which is what Comad tended to do when they weren't just adding adult images to their games, which also doesn't really make the games any better. They've not broken the gameplay as much as they did with Air Assault and SS Mission, which were, I believe, based off Thunder Dragon, but somehow managed to completely mess up collision boxes and move into the sprites and many other things. This is basically a reskin of Twin Cobra, and it still plays like Twin Cobra. But it sounds so bad. And the music seems to get worse as you go along. I don't know if the tune desyncs, but it becomes sort of migraine inducing after a while. And for a long time people thought it was just badly emulated, but no, this is how it sounds on the real hardware. Nothing goes together. I do like out there soundtracks, and TecMagik, the Toadman game, that's one of my favourite soundtracks in a puzzle game, and that's unusual. I have no idea when Cruising Exotic will be playable. I don't think anybody's looking at it. It seems to be a tricky case. Everybody who has ever looked at it has given up. So I don't know. It could be next month. It could be 10 years from now. It just depends on if somebody finally understands it. It gets requested quite a lot, but that doesn't really make it any easier to figure out. I mean, a lot of the things that get requested often are a nightmare to figure out. A number of times people ask me to do Hyper 64. And I've acted ideas on that one. I think we've got less devs who do 3D hardware, so chances are always lower. God, this music is... No. Slightly better when we're not shooting, but that's not so much. Should somebody be proud of this music? I mean, yeah, I say it is just Twin Cobra. This is Twin Cobra. You'll be able to instantly tell it's the same game. But this version is not going to drive you mad. See, this has got a good tune. This is what the sound hardware that you just heard is capable of. You know, actual music. Yeah, MAME is perfectly legal. And yet there's the software itself, emulation is used all over the place. And we've got a fully licensed BSD and GPL. Everything about the project itself is fully above board. How you use it and where you use it might not be, then that's a different matter, but the actual software is, it's a proper piece of software. If you look at Windows itself, it's got emulation technology in the background. Not MAME's technology, but emulation itself has been proved legal many times over. You look at the new Apple systems. They run PC x86 emulators on ARM chips for compatibility. Yeah, I know what you mean, but our software is a legal piece of software. There's nothing illegal about MAME itself. I mean, it's like you asking me, is FreeBar 2000 legal? It plays MP3s. Software itself, yes, it's legal. Yeah, the Twin Cobra itself is just such a much nicer game than what Comad hacked it into for World War II. But I don't want to be playing too much of Twin Cobra. I'm going to look at my list and see what's up here. There's quite a lot. Legionnaire. Oh. Here's a nice one that was very heavily protected. Taito Corporation's Legionnaire. This is this new cop protection. Quite extensively, not as extensively as Sudoku Soccer that doesn't run yet. But yeah, all the enemy movements and everything else, player movements, are all going through the protection device. So the fact that this one runs at all these days, and actually is fully playable as far as we're aware, it's marked as working, is impressive. And as a beaten all, it's one of those, I think you end up with a situation with up to 8 characters on screen, which is higher than a lot of beat 'em ups. So I think that having the cop being used as an actual code processor to do maths calculations for movement, directional and things like that, has probably allowed that, because it's taken some of the load off the 68K, which is really what I guess the cop was designed for, a code processor, why it's called the cop. So they can just tell it, you know, give me the angle between this and that, what's the distance between this and that, and it's probably quicker than doing it in 68K code. So it's one of those where you look at it and go, yeah, this is making good use of the protection device. So not as much as Sudoku Soccer, that every bit of movement, every player, the ball, the radar and everything else is all going through the protection chip, which is why it's such a nightmare. But there's a lot going through the protection chip on this one, and I think it has made it easy for them to develop the game. Dance Sport. I mean, Dance Sport. Is it a sub-up? Who made it? If you want to send it to Sean, it probably doesn't matter if it works or not. I've sent him plenty of broken stuff before, where the batteries have leaked all over it. But as long as you know, he can attempt to dump it. The bomb is usually the last thing to fail on such things, because the rest of the electronics is so bad, it's usually something else that goes wrong. You know, the wire's just falling off inside of them sometimes. But the bombs are often the blobs, and that seems to actually be keeping quite safe. You know, you're not getting pins breaking off and anything. But if you want to open it up and see what's inside and send me some pictures of it, then possibly send it to Sean or Team Europe, then it can probably be done if it's not already, depending on what's inside it. Well, you know, you can't go around buying up every single thing they find. Yeah, this is a Legionnaire, so only became fully playable in the last few years. Before that, it would glitch out, you'd get enemies walking up the screen past the boundary, you'd get enemies not walking off the screen when they're meant to. Most stuff by Tad is pretty good. They did Blood Brothers, Cabal, and this is up there with the solid mechanics, nice fast pace. Trying to do updated graphics on older games was definitely a thing for in the earlier days of emulation, but a lot of the projects went nowhere, or it just became, you know, prohibitively expensive to try and update the entire content. I think there was a Ghosts and Goblins project that just never actually got released after demonstrating the first level. Then you had MUDX, which has since been integrated into Rain, where there were high-resolution versions of things like Donkey Kong, but I don't know, they don't have the charm of the originals in some cases. It's a nice idea, but is updating the graphics and sound making the game better? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I find all those Wii rip-offs absolutely fascinating, just how many of them there were. and what a console of them were, whereas other ones are actually fairly good value. We've got some of them where it says they've got 10 songs and it's just 3 songs repeated, just like the the bootleg NES games, multi-games, where it says 1,000 games and it's actually 50. And then you get others that genuinely have that many songs, but they're the chiptune versions of it. I'd quite like to get the chiptune ones emulated, the ones that use the NES hardware. Plus there's some nice little tunes in there, but a lot of those are difficult to dump. Here we go, Tad advertising their own game, Blood Brothers. And the Cabal, or the Cabal. And Toki. Can't believe they're good at in-game advertising. Though I don't think they're going to call the Cabal. Interesting fact. Blood Brothers in the ROM has a string that says Cabal 2 in West. So it's the sequel. I don't know if it's ever going to be called Cabal 2. My favourite version of Blood Brothers is actually a hack. I don't know that actually. It's got no sound. Playmark hacked up Blood Brothers to make Hard Times. Unfortunately, the PIC microcontroller has not been decapped and is undumped, so there is no sound in this. You see, I like this one better than Blood Brothers, because the whole Western theme doesn't do much for me. But they gave this one a sort of mafia theme, and I like it. So it's just a shame the pick isn't dumped, because sound adds a lot to these games. You don't need the firing sound, but obviously this has got the solid gameplay from Blood Brothers, but with a slightly different theme. It doesn't quite take itself seriously. I mean, look at these. I mean, there's a slightly dodgy sign up there, but it's about 5 pixels, so I'm sure it's fine. There's nothing on display, is there? Anyway, so no sound, but you can tell it's Blood Brothers because this is the traditional sort of fading system that they had for that hardware. The palette, I think it's part of the SDK, because even the Sky Smasher has the same fade, and that wasn't. In fact, there's a few people who seem to lose their clothes when you shoot them in this, although they are being modest about it and covering themselves up, at least. But, I don't know. Never really noticed it before because I've just been blasting things. You see, it's a pretty good hack. I mean, they put a fair bit of effort into redrawing everything, giving it a good theme. There we go, you see. But yeah, I do hope the pick gets dumped one day, because we can decap, well, Capsoft can decap them now. I say we, Capsoft can decap them, and I've had good results. Sometimes they fail, so you always need a spare backup, because it's a risky process. You know, you basically destroying chips to get to the insides, to deprotect them, to read out the content. Anyway, so that's Hard Times, the hack. The original was Blood Brothers, which you say you've got the whole fading thing. You can instantly tell it's the same game. This one does have sound because this is the original. This is a Wild West theme. This theme, the graphics are obviously better drawn. But I don't know. I just don't like it as much. I really like Cabal, you know, the first game. But I don't know. This one just never appealed. It's still obviously a really solid gameplay for me, the way you're destroying all the buildings all the time. And I love this on the home computers, even though the ports weren't great looking back. But I think the way you can destroy everything, there's an appeal to it. You feel like you've got some power with what you're doing, and just the way that the levels are evolving, because everything in them is slowly falling to pieces. Yeah, I'm not going to play too much of this one, but Hard Times versus Brothers, I take Hard Times. As a personal preference, that is one case where I do prefer the hacked version of a game. If we're doing shooter into the screen, this one's my favourite example of just how much is stolen. I did a whole article on my old site that's long gone on this, because every asset in this game, which is SWAT Police, has been traced from somewhere. Every asset. Or stolen. Just directly stolen. The pose of these characters are from something. The shield, I believe, was Judge Dredd. The backgrounds are Burning Fight on this level. The explosions are Metal Slug. Everything is from somewhere else. That map is from Art of Fighting. I think that background... This is Aggressors of Dark Combat. You will not find anything in this game that is not obviously traced, usually from the Neo Geo game, but also from CPS games. Yeah, I think Wild Guns was recommended before. I need to give that one a try. I've not played that much SNES, although I have seen Wild Guns being played, and yes, it does look very good. I mean, this is a good game actually, but if you ignore the fact that everything is stolen, it plays well. So this type of shooter. This is more like a you know, the NAM style one with the rolling. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a shame that everything is stolen in this. Although maybe that adds to the fun. Maybe, you know, seeing trying to find out what's been stolen from where is as much as part of the game as the game. But why, when you can actually make a good game, do you end up stealing everything to make it? The code's into the original. I don't think the code is stolen. The music's probably stolen. Anyway, I think that's enough of this one. That's what I wanted to demonstrate. It's just stolen graphics. I'm looking at my list. Probably do one or two more games, then call the stream. Because I need to come up with a list of other things I want to play at some point. I'm going to go with a shooter. that gets overlooked a bit, probably because it's from Jaleco. This is Psy Battler. So I'm not always that impressed by Jaleco, especially the Mega System 1 games, which, you know, this is dual 68K, which puts it in a league above a lot of other platforms. But most of their games don't show it. This one is a shooter, and it's a bit different, and it's well presented. But what makes it different is you're not just shooting up. You can shoot in all sorts of different directions. It's still a scrolling shooter, but your shot direction locks onto the direction of your last firing. So you change the direction, you hold fire, you keep firing in that direction. So, you know, you can shoot this way. You've also got to let the charge build up from time to time, otherwise your shot will just get weaker. So yeah, I mean, it's not shooting in different directions is obviously not a completely original concept, because you've got plenty of other games that do it with a spinner. Forgotten Worlds, for example. But here it's not a spinner; it's just the last direction you're firing in. It's also got sort of close range attacks too, so it's a bit different. It's half shooter, half close range attack. It's, I mean, Soul Divide, Psycho did similar in the mixed sort of shooter and combat, but that's a horizontal game and is also very different to this. But, you know, again, I like the presentation here, the music, and it runs a lot better than a lot of Jaleco games. I mean, you look at something like Rodland, and the slowdowns in that for not much going on are horrific. That's why most people prefer the home ports of it, because the arcade of Rodland is just really badly programmed. I think this game just has its flaws. I did a bit of research and found a lot of criticism about balance and bugs and fairness and other things, but if you're just playing it casually, you know, it's an experience, it's a good experience. And at the moment I'm at the top of the screen firing down, I could also move around here and fire this way. It's about positioning yourself. So I let my... Yeah, of all the Mega System 1 games, this is my favourite. At least in terms of initial appeal. Been emulated for a long time. This was also in Rain. It's not a new game, but it's a game that, again, I don't see that many people talking about anymore. It feels like it's been forgotten now that the shooting genre is more dominated by people wanting to play cave games. Cave don't have a game like this. They don't have one where you really move and shoot in different directions quite like this. It's you've got to look at the rest of the library to get a full picture of what is available, and sometimes the best examples of such things are not from the big developers. Although Jaleco were a big developer, but their shoot 'em ups aren't really famous. It is checkpoint, as you saw, so you do have to be quite good at it. I did get further earlier on when I wasn't trying to talk at the same time. The soundtrack is fantastic here too. I love the soundtrack. I think I might mention that. What I would say, this has intensity. The soundtrack gives it intensity. The speed of the movement gives it intensity. Your shots always feel intense. The boss appears really quickly like that, flies off like that. It's all fast. It's in your face, and that is something a lot of shooters lack. They'll fill the screen with bullets, but they won't have this intensity in the same way. It's very difficult to describe, but I mean, lots of sounds get ripped. Lots of sounds come from standard soundbank library, so you will hear them all over the place because they're not stolen. They're just sounds they've got permission to use, or sounds that were free to use in the first place. That's one reason you do hear a lot of common sounds on the home computers, the 16 bits. Even some of the Mega Drive games is because they were sound libraries they had permission to use. So I don't know how much of that is always the case. And Check and Pop itself is an odd one, because Check and Pop is in so many of those bootleg NES compilation things, the Dream Gear ones. I don't know if they don't realise they're still selling bootlegs of Check and Pop, but they're still selling bootlegs of Check and Pop, even on the systems you buy today. It's terrible. They seem to fill them with games they've got acquired licenses for, and then they're also full of bootlegs that they don't. So are they trying to license the products, or are they? It's a baffling industry, that. Yeah, a lot of Jaleco stuff's by NMK, that is true, and NMK are a good developer. I know Jaleco did do some of their own things, but yeah, their best stuff is from NMK. There are clear connections between various bits of Jaleco and NMK hardware too. Protection systems are quite similar between some of them. Clearly always work closely together. That's why I kind of like it in MAME if we do specify the developer as well as the publisher. It gives a better account of the reality of the situation. I think for some of them these days that does happen more. Like, I know Robotron and the like have got the actual developer credits as well as the names. And I've tried to do it for the plug and plays. If they're developed by Handheld games, I put Handheld games as well as Jakks specific. SemiCom ones, I put the team name on most of them because that's important, because that's what's in the startup screens and tells you a lot about the games. That didn't go well. But yeah, Cybattler. It's a really good shooter. At least I feel so. Just well presented, good intensity. This is a bit over-sensitive. Very tricky to use high score entry screen. No more than 3 letters, can I? Is it an end? Yes, it is. Hey, what's up next? Labrous Cybattler. Ooh. Let's go for another shooter. This is Blackheart, the UPL game. Now, there are 2 versions in MAME. There's the parent set and the Japan set. The Japan set does not have auto-fire automatically on the button. So, add auto-fire. Import. button. No, that's sorry, input. Button 1. Key. Set. On frames 1, on frame 2, create. There. Now I have autofire. Because the Japan version is otherwise a bit easier than the other one. Which has probably been made harder so that because it's got auto. I don't like that autofire. Let's change that to off frames 3. Should be a bit smoother. No, off frames 4. No, 3 is better. There we go. So, you know, I just use the autofire plugin to add myself an autofire button because I'm not playing without autofire. The autofire plugin replaces the built-in autofire cheat functionality and does give you a lot more flexibility. You can set, say, the on and off frames just like that. It's a Lewis script because a lot of things like that can now be done with the scripting. The autofire plugin does ship with MAME. You've just got to turn it on in the plugin.ini file. But this is a fantasy-themed shooter. You're riding a dragon. There's quite a few like that. Sync Dragon, Dragon Blaze, Kyvern. Dragons and shooters seem to go hand in hand. This one starts off well. I'm always impressed by these early levels. You've got the big bugs, the backgrounds, the trees. It's one of those that quickly goes downhill, however, I find. The art on the first level is lovely. Lots of variation. Sure. Most books. Ooh. I mean, are we talking bugs that never got fixed or bugs that were eventually fixed? If you're talking most bugs, you've got to probably consider things like, you know, the Midway games. They were incredibly buggy when they came out. Mortal Kombat and the like, or even Street Fighter 2. They got through so many revisions to fix bugs. I don't know. I mean, most arcade games had, if they got good location testing, the most severe bugs were ironed out. But if they didn't get location tested properly, the bugs remained. Yeah, I mean, say the likes of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter ship with a lot of bugs that are quite well documented now, but they did get fixed in the end. In more recent games, Cave's Pink Sweets is quite notorious for having an infinite lives bug. Which you don't want in an arcade game. It also resets in places. Trying to think. I don't know. We get a lot of reports on MAME testers and the like where the bugs that were in the games, because people have this idea for some reason arcade games should be perfect and there shouldn't be any one frame glitches and the like. Do you count the bad sprite work in Strider where there's a stray pixel and the walk cycle is a bug that made it to arcades? And somebody should have picked up on that back in the day but didn't. But it's not a software bug, it's just a visual bug. It's a bug in the graphics. I don't think there's anything in the arcades that compares to some of the home computer releases where they clearly didn't get tested at all. Or modern games that without the 0-day patch unplayable sometimes. Things like, I mean, Mortal Kombat 4 was released in an almost unfinished state to the arcades. That's why they made a point of having version 2 and version 3 written on the title screen for the later versions, because the first versions weren't even finished games, but they still put to arcades. I think Japanese developers tended to have a bit more pride in their work and not ship things that were completely unfinished, but it still happened. Yeah, you see, after an impressive first stage, this just starts to get a bit... I don't know, you're spending more time blowing up scenery that's in your way. You get the odd, quite impressive boss here, but it's just become dull after one level, which always disappointed me, because when you fire this at calling it up for the first time, I think this is going to be a really impressive game. No, it's not. But yeah, talking about bugs, the problem is it's always going to be easy to talk about the ones that are well documented, the ones people have played a lot of, found all the bugs in, as opposed to the games that maybe are very buggy but nobody plays. What is it? There's an Italian fighting game, Mighty Warriors, that somebody found you could, while playing it, you could reset it. And studying the code of that, I'm fairly sure it's just a bug in the game. It doesn't handle the situations properly, never got tested, and still shipped. If you're talking other games that seem to crash all the time, and I think, unless they're bad dumps, are just buggy games, Super Trio? I mean, Super Trio, people playing it, trying to long play it, got to the point where, it's considered a good run if the game doesn't reset on you. And I think, again, that is a bug in the game, or the only board that was dumped is a bad dump, but it's a Korean platform game, and I don't know. Actually, Super Trio... It's Super Trio. Game Ace. This one, it's one I emulated. It's a platform game. It feels like, one of those bootleg Mega Drive games. You can't go that way. See, that's annoying in itself. But this one apparently is rather easy to crash without trying, just by trying to play the game. I remember Ghouls and Ghosts on the Mega Drive. You could glitch out in many ways just by backtracking on yourself and going to where it hadn't loaded enemies yet, and going too far and having so many sprites on the screen it couldn't render more enemies or didn't change the palette properly. I don't remember Ghosts and Goblins itself being buggy, but I didn't play as much of it because I usually died far too early on because it's a tough game. I actually wish somebody who was good at Ghosts and Goblins would long play the Jakks Pacific version, because I think that's one-to-one conversion of the code. There aren't many arcade platform games, so actually the fact that this is an arcade platform game just set it aside a little bit, but it's also apparently very buggy. Robocop there. Absolutely, completely, definitely not Robocop. See, you feel like you should be able to jump up there too, but you can't. That sound effect, the jump is stolen, isn't it? That's a very familiar jump sound. Yeah. Oh, come on. It's got fall damage as well. What is this? Bubsy. Ray Force 1.5. You mean the sequel to Ray Force, which apparently only had like a single level developed for it or something? Where do I go? I don't know. That was Super Trio. Yeah, I don't think that Ray Force sequel is going to get dumped. I think it's probably ended up in a mess of a rights battle once it came to light. Sadly. Yeah, okay. See, I would love somebody to long play this. I'm not going to long play it myself, but this is the Jakks plug and play with 1942, Ghosts and Goblins and Commando. I've got this one behind me on the shelf actually, but you see, you select Ghosts and Goblins, and it's off-center because they've extended the visible area. It feels a little bit prototypey, and while it's really popular over here in Europe, the US version of this is a very uncommon device, so I'm wondering if it was very close to us being cancelled. But yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about Ghosts and Goblins to know if this is a perfect copy, re-implementation of it. So we've got that weapon. But yeah, if anybody who's actually good at the game can long play this to the end, I'd like to hear opinions on it. Apart from the fact the sound is terrible, and it's just as bad on the radio, I believe. But yeah, that's an interesting one from a personal point of view. I wish the Tecmo one with Solomon's Key had been released. Apparently that was completed in development as a plug and play, but never made it to market, and I'm not sure we'll ever see anybody discreetly posting the ROMs from that, because it just doesn't seem to happen with plug and plays. Once they're gone, they're gone. Cancelled development is cancelled. Right, one last game. I'm going to go with maybe two last game. At least I'll go with Puzzly 2. This is one of the ones where I spent a long time working out how protection worked. And I would really like to replace that with emulation of it, but that would require decapping the thing and finding a way to read it, and it's a custom ARM-based ASIC, which might not be possible. But the protection controls all the level data, and rearranging it into actual data from one format to another, and basically trying almost decompressing it. But this is a sequel to the game that was found on the Metro platform, and the concept was licensed by Metro to IGS. And I'm glad they made this. I think Puzzle Star was the same. Puzzle Star doesn't work yet because that's got even nasty protection that I haven't worked out at all. Nice little intro. Perfect for a puzzle game. Good music. But licensed by Metro, 1999 IGS. You probably won't be able to post a link in the chat. You might be able to post it on the catch-up video. Yeah, this is the catfishing game. You push the fish down, you make 3, you fish him out, and your cat, or werecat in this version, celebrates with you. It's actually a really good little puzzle game, this. As is the original puzzle. Actually, yes, put out some good titles for a company that mainly focus on really generic gambling games. But when they had the, when they were putting the budget into these proper PGM games, they turned out well. I guess it wasn't sustainable, it wasn't profitable enough. And the PGM platform was a fun one to emulate as well, just for the weird way in which the sprites work with the different ROMs containing the outline data and palette data. And that's carried through to PGM 2, which was the same thing but slightly different. I'm doing badly here. Yeah, okay, I'll search for the Ghosts and Goblins bug later then. Because, I mean, I know there's a bug in the game where if you leave it in a track mode for too long it locks up, but that's a long time. You notice it in MAME, you can run it like at 2000% speed and it locks up fairly quickly. But in a real arcade it'd probably take over a day to lock up. Somebody did document it as a real bug in the game, which is unusual because most arcade games would be soak tested running the attract mode for a long period of time. I mean, if I emulate something, it's one of the things I will do is I will leave the attract mode running at least to make sure it doesn't crash after a certain amount of time, although it's not the best test in the world. But Ghosts and Goblins is one that does surprisingly crash after a certain amount of time. And that's just how it is. But, yeah, I'd be interested to read what other bugs were in it. I think every game's got bugs in, it's just, are they serious bugs or are they bugs that nobody's ever going to notice? No, wrong way. Okay. Anyway, we're after 3 hours, so yeah, this is going to be the last game I play. I don't really want to keep the stream going on for 3 hours, more than 3 hours really. I have appreciated all the company. It's been good to have a chat to people. I'm sorry if I didn't play everything people wanted to see. I just tend to go with the flow a little bit, while also referring to the list I've got. Seems to be mostly arcade stuff tonight, with a bit of plug and play thrown in. I actually get nervous playing this one because I don't want to accidentally encounter a bug in my protection simulation, but nobody's reported any, so I think it's good. I did test it extensively back in the day, but you never know. Firstly, is a very cute and addictive puzzle game. it's probably the best fishing game in MAME. Even if it's not really a fishing game. On the PGM hardware, the wavy water effect is done with line scroll. That's one of the things that's a bit broken in the Metro hardware version, because the raster effect's not quite right, and it tends to be a bit flickery and a bit jittery. Anyway, the levels get more difficult. You get more elements in the stages. They are slightly randomised, so you don't get the same gameplay experience every time, which is one of the reasons it was quite tricky to actually test it all. But yeah, Puzzly 2. It's one of the good games on the PGM platform. And if you like puzzle games, definitely play it. But with that, yeah, I'm going to call the stream there, I think. I've got some more games on the list, but I've just been playing most things briefly. A lot of the things I played today, I might cover again in future streams, give a bit more gameplay time to, especially things like the NewZealand Story, where I was just demonstrating the first stage changes. I'd like to play that a bit more. Idea. Let's see. Alright. Shall I very briefly put on something? I don't know. Were there no Diego games on V.Smile? I played the Diego game last time. I think there's a French version. Do you want French Diego? This is going to be like a minute at most, and then I'm going to say good night. Here is a Diego game on V.Smile. This is literally going to be a minute of gameplay, just so I play a Diego game. Yeah, I don't know if there's no English version of this dumped or if it's just not showing up for me, but yeah, go Diego in French. There you go, there's Diego. With a hand glider in a jungle.
Go, Diego! À la rescousse des animaux!
I think he's got to rescue the animals.
Acte aventure éducative.
Yeah, maybe save the animals is dumped. I don't know.
Jouer l'aventure.
Yeah, I mean, you can see why the V.Smile was a popular thing. But yeah, this is. There we go. You see, it's French Diego. It's even using blending on the clouds. There you go. See, there's a. Can I get to the spine? No. No, I don't want to quit. Got to crawl under there. The thing with kids' games is you can usually work out what you're doing, even if you don't understand them. It's also interesting to see how they change them for different regions, what they teach. Red? No. What are the keys? Red is shift. There we go. Anyway. Yeah, okay. I'm going to quit this now anyway. But yeah, this Diego game is playable on V.Smile. Anyway. No, I've not done a video on the Diego V.Smile one. I plan on doing a bit more V.Smile coverage at some point. I've not really looked into it. A lot of things were dumped recently that I need to go over. So I don't see Saves the Animals listed immediately, but maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. There's a lot more French and Spanish V.Smile games dumped than English ones. Oh no, sorry, yeah, Go Diego. Nick Jr., Go Diego, Go Save the Animal Families. I guess that was the English version, wasn't it? This is the English version of the same game? Probably is. Anyway, hello Nikki and Bunty. You have caught me just as I am closing down the stream. Yeah, this is the same game. This is the English version. Okay, the English version of this is dumped. But I'm not going to play this now. There you go. Save the Animal Families. Yeah. But yeah, I might do some videos of the V.Smile ones at some point. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said this last time. I end up clashing with you doing your stream, and you know, I had to 3 hours 10 minutes now, and I was planning to do about 2.5 hours. So I am sorry, but it is time for me to shut this down and probably get some sleep. But thank you for dropping by, much appreciated. And if anybody doesn't know Nicky and Bunty, they've got a fantastic channel on Twitch. They do streaming, a good show every Friday night and other things during the week. I think they're doing some old TV stuff on Sundays now. I saw on their Twitter. Follow them on Twitter too. I think is it Chrono Trigger lunchtimes as well, many days. So yeah, they've got a lot of good content. So do follow them. And I really appreciate you dropping by. It's just a shame it's literally this sort of bonus encore stage of I'm putting on a Diogo game as a special request after I was already going to shut the stream down 5 minutes ago. Okay, so alright, anyway, good night everybody, and thanks to everybody who has joined in, and I will see you all soon.